The Bobbsey Twins Treasure Hunting by Laura Lee Hope. Copyright 1929, Grosset and Dunlap. Chapter 1. The Big Surprise. Raining, raining, oh how it's raining, shouted Flossie Bobbsey as she pressed her little nose flat against the window glass to look out. It's raining, but it can't wet my nose, she recited in a sing-song voice. It's raining, it's pouring, the old man is snoring. It was Freddie Bobbsey's turn now, and he added his song to his sister's as he also put his face as close to the glass as he could get it, his nose, too, being quite flat. Look, Flossie, he called. It looks just as if the rain was running down my nose, don't it? Yes, agreed the other small twin. It does. Oh, but how it rains, she exclaimed, as a sheet of water dashed against the window and the wind blew harder. Nan and Bert will get sopping wet, announced Freddie. Nan will get wet and Bert will get wet, but we won't get wet because we're in the house. Oh, that's right, exclaimed Flossie, being reminded of the older twins by what Freddie said. Nan and Bert haven't got any umbrella or anything. They'll get terribly wet. Flossie and Freddie turned aside from their nose pressing for a moment to see who had entered the room behind them. It was Mrs. Bobbsey, and she heard what Flossie said about Bert and Nan having no umbrella. You don't mean to tell me that Bert and Nan are out in all this rain, do you? Asked the mother of the Bobbsey twins. Yes'm, Mother. They're out in it, and they haven't got rubbers or nothing, declared Freddie. Why, how careless of them, Mrs. Bobbsey said. They ought to know better than to go out in the rain without an umbrella or a rubber coat, or something. Oh, but it wasn't raining when they went out, Flossie explained. But it looked like it, said Freddie. Dear me, murmured Mrs. Bobbsey, as she listened to the dashing of the rain and the howling of the wind. Why did they go out? She herself had just come in. She had been downtown shopping, but she had had the small automobile and, though she was caught in the storm, she did not get wet, except a little in hurrying in from the garage to the house. We might be out in the rain too, said Flossie. Only I waited for Freddie to find his fire engine, and then it began to rain and we didn't go out. Dinah said we mustn't. Dinah was right, replied Mrs. Bobbsey, smiling at the fat, good-natured colored cook who just then came into the room to ask what she would cook for dinner. "Deed, and I wouldn't let my honey lambs go out when I knowed it were going to storm," declared Dinah. "How did you know it was going to rain, Dinah?" asked Flossie. "'Cause I had the misery in my big toe," answered the colored cook. "Aunt Sally Pry used to have the misery in her back," said Freddie. "'Member, Flossie?" "Sure," answered the golden-haired little girl. "She called it plumbago." "Lumbago, my dear, not plumbago," corrected Mrs. Bobbsey with a smile. "Poor Aunt Sally Pry. I haven't seen her for several weeks. She went away to visit some relations, I believe. But I wish Bert and Nan hadn't gone out in all this rain. My, it's a terrible storm." "They didn't go out in the rain, Mother," gently corrected the little girl. "It wasn't raining when they went out. And they always go out to play in the woods on Saturday, and this is Saturday." "So it is. I had forgotten," said Mrs. Bobbsey. "It's too bad it had to rain on Saturday and spoil all your fun." "It will soon be vacation," announced Freddie. "And won't you be glad of that, Flossie?" "I just guess I will. Where are we going this vacation, Mother?" she asked, turning back to the window to again press her little nose flat against the glass. "Are we going to the country or the seashore?" "I don't know that your father has quite made up his mind," was the answer. "But are you sure Bert and Nan didn't take any umbrella?" she anxiously inquired. "No, they didn't take nothing," said Freddie, earnestly enough if not correct in his talk. "They didn't have no umbrella, no rubbers, no nothing. We saw 'em go out," went on Flossie. "And we would have gone with 'em, only they didn't want us, and Dinah said we mustn't go. Anyway, Freddie wanted to take his toy fire engine, and he couldn't find it." I'm glad he couldn't, stated Mrs. Bobbsey, for then all my 4 twins would be out in the rain. It's bad enough to have 2 of them drenched. I like to get rained on in summer, chuckled Freddie. If we put our rubbers and coats on, Mother, could Flossie and I go out in the rain? No, indeed. The storm is too hard, declared Mrs. Bobbsey. But where did Nan and Bert go? Do you know? They went with Jimmy Big Fish and his sister Sunshine, said Flossie. Oh, the Indian children, exclaimed Mrs. Bobbsey. Well, perhaps Jimmy and Sunshine may know of some place where they can go in with Bert and Nan to be sheltered from the storm. Indians don't mind the rain, droned Freddie in a sing-song tone. I wish I was an Indian, I'd go out in the rain. Jimmy and Sunshine are only part Indian, declared Flossie. Well, part Indians don't mind going out in the rain, hummed Freddie. I wish I was half an Indian, he sang. And I wish Bert and Nan were back home, ejaculated Mrs. Bobbsey. Did they say why they were going to the woods? She wanted to know. For a surprise, announced Freddie mysteriously. A surprise? Exclaimed his mother. Yes, it's to be a big surprise, added Flossie. We heard Nan and Bert say it was to be a surprise when they started off. Who were they going to surprise? Asked Mrs. Bobbsey. Everybody, stated Flossie. You and Dinah and Sam and everybody, added Freddie. What kind of surprise? Mrs. Bobbsey wanted to know. But this question Flossie and Freddie could not answer. All they knew was that Nan and Bert, when they started off with the half-breed Indian children who lived nearby, had spoken of a big surprise for everybody. Well, I hope they come home soon and tell us what it is, Freddie said. Maybe it's a surprise good to eat. How could they get anything good to eat in the woods? Flossie demanded. There's lots of good things to eat in the woods, declared the little boy, whose hair was light and whose eyes were blue, like his twin sisters. Jimmy Big Fish showed me how to dig up some artichoke roots that were good to eat. Pooh! Who wants to eat roots? Asked Flossie. You do. You like potatoes and you love peanuts, answered Freddie. Was Flossie's only reply to this. Mrs. Bobbsey left the room feeling rather anxious about Bert and Nan, though she thought the worst that could happen was that they would get wet through. But it was summer, and the rain, though pelting swiftly down, was warm, and the wind, though hard, was not cold. Oh, look at that gutter, called Flossie, who, with her small brother, was again at the window peering out. It's full of water like a river. So it is, agreed her brother. Oh, I wish I had my sailboat out there. Let's go for it, proposed Flossie, who was a daring little twin. It would be fun, agreed Freddie, and he went to a closet where his playthings were kept and began delving among roller skates, balls, small tennis rackets, and the like. He found his sailboat and was carrying it toward the door when Dinah saw him. What you going to do, honey lamb? She asked. I'm going to sail my boat in the gutter. It's full of water, Freddie replied. Like a river, added Flossie. No, y'all don't, declared Dinah, speaking as commandingly as Mrs. Bobbsey might have done. The colored cook had been in the family since before Flossie and Freddie were born, and very often she made them mind as their own mother might. You can't go out in this rain to sail boats or nothing, Dinah declared, and she waddled to the door and stood in front of it. Oh, please, Dinah, pleaded the little boy. I won't be a minute out there. I just want to see my boat sail. We'll put on raincoats, offered Flossie. No, indeedy, answered Dinah. Y'all know your ma won't let you go out in the rain. That was true, and the small twins, much disappointed, turned back into the room where they had been watching the storm through the window. Sadly, Freddie put his boat back in the closet. Well, we can play hide-and-go-seek anyhow, said Flossie, who was a bit sulky because of not being allowed to go out. That's all right. Play in the house much as you like, agreed Dinah. But my honey lambs mustn't go out in the wet and maybe get the misery in the back. She smiled so kindly that Flossie and Freddie could no longer feel hurt or angry, And when, a little later, Dinah brought each of the small twins a sugar cookie, fresh from her oven, Flossie and Freddie began to smile. "We'll play picnic with the cookies," decided Flossie. "We'll pretend the big chair is a desert island and we're shipwrecked." "Oh, yes," agreed Freddie. "And after that, we'll play hide-and-go-seek." The rain still fell. The wind blew mournfully in the chimney. But the small Bobbsey twins, snug and warm in the house, played games. Now and then they would go to the window to look out, watching the big drops splash down and wondering what had become of Nan and Bert. "Look how full the gutter is now," called Flossie, after her last visit to the window. "Oh!" exclaimed Freddie. "I guess my boat would sail fine now. Maybe, when it stops raining, we can go out and play with it." "Maybe," murmured Flossie, and then she saw something else than the rain-flooded gutter. It was an old woman who, with her umbrella almost blown inside out by the wind, was coming across the street toward the Bobbsey house. "Oh, look!" cried Flossie excitedly. "The old lady fell in the gutter! She'll be drowned!" It was true that the woman had slipped and fallen right where the gutter water was deepest. Flossie and Freddie watched interestedly the poor old soul trying to get to her feet. The umbrella blew away and they had a sight of her face. "Why!" cried Freddie in surprise. "Why, it's Aunt Sally Pry! Oh, we've got to save her!" End of Chapter 1.